The last dragon had disappeared 3,000 years ago, or so the histories claimed. The great beasts had simply vanished from the cosmos, leaving behind only myths carved into ancient stone and whispered around dying fires. Scholars debated whether they had ever existed at all, or if they were merely symbols, metaphors for humanity's primal fears and forgotten gods. Eli didn't care about scholarly debates. He cared about survival. The colony ship Meridian's hope hung dead in space, its engines cold, life support failing. 47 souls aboard, including Eli's younger sister Maya, who lay unconscious in the medical bay, her small chest barely rising with each labored breath. The ship's distress beacon had been screaming into the void for 6 days. No one had answered. Eli stood in the observation deck, his forehead pressed against the reinforced glass, staring out at the swirling nebula that painted the darkness in shades of purple and gold. He was 12 years old, too young to understand why the universe could be so beautiful and so cruel at the same time. "Please," he whispered, his breath fogging the glass. "Someone, anyone." The words felt hollow. Space didn't care about human pleas. Space was indifferent, vast, and silent. But Eli had read the old stories during the long voyage from Earth. Stories his grandmother had loaded into his personal archive. Tales of dragons who had once traversed the stars. Beings of immense power who had served as guardians before they withdrew from the younger races. Fairy tales, his father had called them. Children's nonsense. Desperate nonsense was all Eli had left. He closed his eyes and thought of Maya's smile, of her laughter echoing through their cramped cabin. He thought of his parents working frantically in engineering, trying to coax life from failing systems. He thought of every person aboard this dying ship, their hopes and dreams and fears, and he called, not with words but with something deeper, a cry that came from the marrow of his bones, from the electric firing of his neurons, from the desperate animal core of his being that refused to accept extinction. It was a wordless scream of defiance hurled into the cosmic dark, a human child's refusal to go quietly into oblivion. "Help us." The nebula rippled. Eli's eyes snapped open. For a moment he thought he'd imagined it, but then he saw it again, a disturbance in the gas clouds, as if something massive was moving through them, displacing matter that had hung undisturbed for millennia. The shape that emerged defied comprehension. It was a dragon, but not like any creature from Earth's mythology. Calith was born of starlight and void, scales that shimmered with the iridescence of event horizons, wings that seemed to fold through dimensions Eli's mind couldn't properly process. The dragon was kilometers long, yet somehow Eli could perceive every detail. The ancient wisdom in eyes that burned like binary stars, the scars of cosmic battles etched across armored hide, the corona of energy that crackled around horns that pierced reality itself. "Who calls?" The voice bypassed Eli's ears entirely, resonating directly in his consciousness. He staggered backward, overwhelmed, but held his ground. "I do," Eli said aloud, his voice cracking. "My name is Eli. Our ship is dying. My sister is dying. Please, the young ones have forgotten us," Calith rumbled, moving closer to the ship. Each movement sent ripples of exotic radiation across the hull sensors. "For 3,000 cycles we have slept, waiting for a call, worthy of answer. Your kind grew arrogant, believing they had outgrown need of the ancient guardians." "I don't know about that," Eli said, tears streaming down his face. "I just know we need help. I know my sister deserves to see her 8th birthday. I know the people on this ship have families waiting for them at the colony. Please, I'm begging you." The dragon studied him with those impossible eyes, and Eli felt the weight of that gaze examining not just his body but his soul. Every memory, every fear, every desperate hope laid bare. "You are small," Calith said, but there was no mockery in the words. "Fragile. Your lifespan is but a heartbeat to my kind, yet you possess something we had thought extinct in your species." "What?" Eli whispered. "Humility. Courage not born of arrogance but of love." The dragon's wings spread, catching the nebula's light. "This is why we once chose to guard humanity. Not because you were strong, but because in your weakness, you dared to care for each other. Some of you still remember." Calith moved, and space itself seemed to bend around the dragon's will. Energy flowed from the ancient being, a stream of pure power that enveloped the Meridian's hope. Eli felt it through the deck plating, a thrumming warmth, like the universe itself was breathing life back into dead systems. Lights flickered on throughout the ship. The engines hummed back to life. In the medical bay, monitors began to beep steadily as life support systems surged with renewed power. "Your call has been heard, Eli of the humans," Calith declared. "And more than that, it has awakened us. We had forgotten that not all humans had forgotten us. For your courage, for your sister's sake, for the memory of what your kind once was and might be again." The dragons returned to the stars. Across the galaxy, in the deep places between worlds, other shapes began to stir. Ancient beings who had withdrawn in disappointment 3 millennia ago, waiting for a reason to hope again. A human child had given them that reason. "Thank you," Eli sobbed, pressing his hand against the glass as if he could touch the magnificent being before him. "No, young one. Thank you for reminding us why we loved your species enough to guard you in the first place. You are small. Yes, fragile, yes, but in your hearts burns a fire that puts suns to shame." Calith began to fade back into the nebula, but Eli could still feel the dragon's presence, a watchful guardian in the dark. "We will watch over you now. As we once did. The dragons have returned, and humanity, it seems, deserves another chance." The observation deck door burst open. Eli's parents rushed in, followed by the ship's captain, all talking at once about the miraculous power surge, the impossible readings, the salvation that had come from nowhere. But Eli just smiled, wiping his tears, and looked out at the stars where dragons now flew once more. Sometimes, all it took was one voice crying out in the dark to wake up legends.